Sure.
Rod Favre is asking about the gap between Alabama and the rest of the SEC. And before we let the expert cut loose on this one, I'll just simply say that to me, Georgia's the closest. The personnel's almost equal when you evaluate the talent. Now, if JT Daniels can come through and be the guy, then maybe they completely close the gap. And then Alabama, I think there are college football fans that are wrestling between, is it just going to be Alabama because it's always Alabama, or the losses of Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, Mac Jones on down the line actually going to hurt their production this year?
Well, I can tell you right now, I think this defense will be better. And a lot of SEC fans are shuddering to think about this. What if Henry To'oTo'o, maybe the best linebacker in the SEC, goes to Alabama from Tennessee? So I think that's a possibility too. I know I like what you said about Georgia. Look, Georgia's had so many 5-stars that they've recruited. It's really hard to ignore where they are, particularly, again, if JT Daniels adds the balance and stability with that offense as we think that it might at this point too. And with Georgia, we've got a couple of guys who are coming back, also with Julian Rochester and Demetrius Robinson, the wide receiver, and the defensive lineman, that will add depth with that too. I would also throw A&M in there too, Mark, because they have really done a great job in, frankly, rebuilding their line of scrimmage. Now, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be after Kellen Mond has left after what seems like about a decade. So that's going to be fascinating. But, Jimbo Fisher will, I think, be able to do a good job with that too. And I think what we need to say is the biggest games that A&M have this year, i.e. Alabama, are going to be at home. So, that means something, doesn't it, Mark? Frankly, to have a situation such as that. So, I would certainly say in the East would be Georgia. In the West would be Texas A&M. As far as where Bama is, but again, I agree with Aaron Short there in his comments that the dynasty is nowhere near ending at this point either.
The Florida Gators, of course, gave Alabama its biggest challenge in 2020. Really good football game. That I think that the final score was a little bit closer than the threat was. We're all crediting Florida with giving them a game. They certainly did. They were within firing distance, but when you got the ball at your own 3-yard line with like 8 seconds left in the game, you're not threatening to win the game. So it was never truly in doubt. But you get within a score, you got a chance. And they needed to shut down Alabama before they got a couple first downs and punted the footballs to give themselves a real chance. But they did give Bama the best game there in 2020. And I just got to think that Florida might be more of a different team in 21 than any other team in the conference.
I think that's the question that we've got. And for whoever just signed on, Florida started spring practice today. Now, that's kind of unusual starting in February, but that's what they did. And unfortunately, they're not going to have a spring game, which really is disappointing to me. Now, the stadium is a testing site for COVID, and that's one of the reasons that they use. Now, that they're going to do and provide fans with some streaming opportunities. I don't know what that's going to be. I hope it's more than just stretching. That fans can actually see some of these players that are going on. But look, your point's a good one. Kyle Trask is gone. Kyle Pitts is gone. Who are going to replace those guys? Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson are two guys at quarterback who are going to be coming in too. And with that going through the whole roster right now, I think, to me, Mark, I think they'll be okay offensively with Mullen and whoever the quarterback's going to be. I think Emory Jones is kind of what, shall we say, that Dan Mullen's used to, that what he had at Ole Miss, a guy who could really run the ball, and it was an adequate passer. So I think that's more of what he likes to do offensively. Mark, the thing to me is how quickly can Todd Grantham retool this defense, especially with guys like Kylie Kyrie Campbell, who are gone. When he came back last year, he made a big difference. Marco Wilson, yes, unfortunately, of the shoe throwing fame, he's one of the guys who will be gone too. So that is a big question. Now, again, Florida begins the season playing FAU in Gainesville. Then they go, I think this is kind of intriguing. Then they go to South Florida and Tampa. Now, look, Mark, I'm sure you read between the lines on this one real quick. Tampa's a big, big Gator fan area that you've got a lot of alumni in Tampa. So I think that's for recruiting purposes as much as anything else. And again, for Florida, maybe the advantage they've got is they play Bama in Gainesville this year toward the end of September. So that will certainly be interesting to see where that goes. I still think Bama has got the better roster than Florida does. But again, when you're on the road, it's early. For Alabama, you're breaking in a new quarterback. You really never know what's going to be going on. So all of these things make Florida rather intriguing for 2021.
Yes, you took my word. The last word of your sentence took it right out of my mouth. Intriguing, because I don't know that there was a team that brought us more highs and more lows in one season over the span of a couple months. On one hand, if you would have told me at the beginning of last season, Florida's going to beat Georgia, win the East, give Bama's going to be the best team in college football by far, and you know what? Florida's going to give them their best game, going to play within 6. I would have said, great year for Dan Mullen. Absolutely. Yep. Okay, they broke through. Well, no. Dan Mullen ran onto the field against Missouri and caused a big debacle there. He complained about the crowd noise with 18 or 20,000 people in the stands at Texas A&M, and that was a big issue. They had a shoe throwing incident, which cost them a shot at a college football playoff possibility against LSU. They lost that game, and then half the team didn't show up, and they gave up against Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl and gave up 55 points.
Well, and listen, 2 things there. That the LSU debacle is really what hurt this team desperately. If they win that game, they're going to Atlanta, frankly, with whether it happened or not, we don't know, but at least the hype would have been ramped up tremendously with the possibility of them, if they won that game, they were going to the playoffs. And again, you get a situation where they play Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl, and after that, you've got Dan Mullen talking about, well, our scout team didn't play real well, so you can imagine that did not go over with Gator fans at all. And then, as you mentioned, you had so many of the players opted out or basically quit on their team for the game. I still say, Mark, in that Oklahoma game, if that had been a playoff game, if we had expanded the playoffs like we should have in this COVID year, and that was a playoff game, that would have been one of the most anticipated games of the year, frankly. And if all those Gator players who opted out would have played, it would have made a tremendous difference for the Gators in that game. Unfortunately, it didn't. And your point's a good one. What an 8-4 year, Mark, that really should have been at least a couple more wins, and as far as double-digit wins.
Yeah, so Florida trying to figure out how they replace an offense and then fix some defensive problems are hard at work here, starting on Thursday today. For the first day of spring practice, we had some updates from Jackie Franchuli from All Gators, and check out that video